the 20th of April, 2020. This is a special meeting of USD 453. And we are calling order with a roll call. Mr. Kearney, good evening.
Aye. Here.
Of April, 2020. This is a special meeting of USD 453. And we are calling order with a roll call. Mr. Kearney, good evening.
Aye. Here.
Of April.
We got a problem with the.
We got some feedback.
Yeah, 'cause I already said here. I'm here again.
Yeah. Mr. Goodman.
Here.
Mrs. Murphy.
Here.
Mr. Powell.
Here.
Mrs. Price.
Here.
Mrs. Wells.
Here.
All right. We need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, we've got a second from Mr. Goodman. All those in favor, raise a hand. I count 7-0. All right, and once again, to anybody viewing this special meeting, we apologize for not having a chance to have unscheduled public comments from the public, but we do encourage you to contact the board members or the administration as appropriate for any comments, questions on what you see and hear here tonight. All right, moving on to agenda item 2, District Mental Health Initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Darling. With us tonight, we have Miss Kim Knight, and she's an assistant principal at the high school, and Christy Jones, who's the high school principal. One of the things that they will talk with you tonight as a board is our mental health initiative, specifically the grant that encompasses the grant that we got from the state of Kansas with this. And so Miss Knight has done an outstanding job leading us through this, working with other districts in the county, but more specifically working with the Guidance Center and our students. And so we appreciate her efforts in this. And we also appreciate Miss Jones's efforts as well, because she plays a big role in allowing Miss Knight to have the time to be able to do this type of stuff. So with that, I will turn it over to those two.
All right, I'll just jump in. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. I'm actually going to turn my video off because I don't want it to lag too much. But I will share my screen as we go. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for allowing us to go forth with this effort. It's been a huge success for our kids. It's a huge benefit for them. We've seen a lot of students grow immensely through this program. So having the opportunity is awesome. So I appreciate our board, our administration, everybody giving us the opportunity to do this. So I'm going to go over some information for you guys. Basically, I just created a quick Prezi that shares some of the data from the grant, from the kids that we're seeing. I'm going to give you a quick overview. Can everybody see the presentation? I need somebody to actually say it, because when I share screens.
Yes,
Okay,
I can.
awesome. Okay, so at the end, but I want to give you a brief overview of what we actually do with the program, how the grant works, how we process students through, and then just give you a couple of specific stories. Obviously, we won't reveal any names or anything like that, but we've had some success stories that bring you to chills. So I'll go really quick, the program overview. There are really 3 people strongly involved with the grant. They are myself, Terry Bell, and Ruby Granlund. So Terry Bell is our social worker that is split between the high school and Warren. And she spends half of her time with us. And when she's with us at the high school, she is acting as the mental health liaison, which is identified by the grant. And I will explain what that is exactly in a minute. Myself, about 25% of my job is working as the mental health liaison. Obviously, the other 75% is an assistant principal. The school-based therapist that we hired this year, her name is Ruby Granlund. She actually herself is former military and is married military, but promises she's going to be here for a few years. She is a doll. She is so amazing. She's connected with our kids so quickly. They love her. We love her. We have a great culture that's open, and she can come to us with anything. We can go to her with anything. So I'll go over the mental health liaison position. And that is what is primarily funded by the grant, because what the state determined was it's really hard just to hand a school a therapist and say, good luck, you need somebody to actually coordinate it. So the mental health liaisons, we are the ones that roles for students. Sometimes they come from staff members, sometimes they come from peers, parents even will call in and say, I'm worried about my student. We will screen them to determine if the student should see a therapist, or if maybe something that we need to work out with the parent, or work out at, mediation with the teacher or something like that. Then we pass that along. Once we've determined they are in need of a therapist, we will contact parents and get a consent form, which we then enter into our program, allowing us to reach out to the guidance center. Of course, there's FERPA and HIPAA that we have to balance all the time. So that's why all these, forms and stuff like that are very important. Collect the program data, and then we submit that data to the state. We have 2 entry points for the state that are required to maintain the grant, where we enter exactly which students are being seen and what kind of services they're receiving. Ruby, she is an employee of the guidance center, so she is not on USD 453's payroll. Part of her salary is paid for, though, by the state grant, which kind of passes through us and then goes straight over to the guidance center. She is located at the high school. She's in our guidance office, if you've not seen her in there. And so we've got all 4 of our counselors and then Ruby located very close together. Her services are provided, or they're billed to third-party reimbursement. So her services are billed to insurance, and the reimbursement goes back to the guidance center. The services that she provides, and I want to make sure, and this is where you may want to jot down some questions and ask later if anybody has needs some clarity on this. But what she does is very, very different than like a guidance counselor or a social worker. She is trained to do diagnoses and treatment programming. She works with targeted case managers. She puts together very effective plans for kids based on whatever their diagnosis is. She does person-centered and solution-focused therapeutic interventions. That's a really classy term for therapy. She uses different types of therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one. Where she works specifically with the students. Those usually range from 30 to 60 minutes. She does family therapy, actually quite a bit, where she'll have parents come in after school hours and work with the students. She does risk assessments for suicidal and homicidal ideation. She does crisis intervention. So, and I'll give some specific examples later on, but we have students who struggle with panic attacks. We have students who struggle with like literally psychosis type things where they hear voices. We have students that struggle with homicidal issues, and she is able to step in at that point. She does refer a lot of students on for related services. So in addition to therapy, quite a few of our students are receiving case management. We've got, I want to say probably 15 students in the Target program, which provides intensive therapy during the school day at the guidance center in group format. And then she refers them on for med management if a student would like to start medicine for whatever their diagnosis is. The process of referral, just a quick overview. So a student is referred. we go to consent, or we go get consent after the screening. And we have a very easy form, which actually we have gone online with the consent form now. So we have had 3 new referrals and signed consents since we were dismissed from the buildings this year. So after April 1st, we've had 3 more. So students that are struggling that have reached out that we've been able to get through the screening and consent online. At that point, they go to the guidance center. They go to an intake at the guidance center. Ruby is trained to do that in her office. So a lot of the time they can do this right at the high school. An intake lasts around an hour. And if you're not familiar with that terminology, basically it's a time that Ruby will interview the students. She'll interview the parents to really get an assessment of what's going on with the kid. That's where the diagnosis will come out of, and they will go over treatment options, and she will refer to additional services at that time if she feels that's necessary. And then just very simple, if the student is deemed to need ongoing treatment, like regular therapy, then they would be referred on to that. So, and I don't go over it a whole lot, but basically students schedule their therapy throughout the day. And she's always packed during Pioneer time. So we try to avoid instruction the best that we can. But she also coordinates with teachers to make sure that a student can miss a particular class. They usually do like once a week. Occasionally when a kid is really, really struggling, it'll be 2 times a week. But she's also there for that immediate crisis. So if one of her students, one of her clients is really struggling and basically having a meltdown, we can get her directly in or get him directly in to see Ruby, which will prevent, a distraction in a classroom of a student crying and freaking out. Program data, and just to let you guys know some basic numbers, 102 individual students have been seen by Ruby. That doesn't mean there's 102 on her caseload. That just means 102 have been seen, and she's made note that she's worked with them on some kind of crisis intervention or something like that. That is almost 8% of our school population. 41 students are receiving ongoing services. Just to put that in perspective, a regular therapist would have a caseload of approximately 30. So she's holding 41 right now. Pretty high, but she's not willing to part with any of them, and we're not willing to say, sorry, we don't have room for you, so we make it work. And we have 28 students that have been referred on to related services. The diagnoses that we're seeing the most often, generalized or social anxiety disorder, major or persistent depressive disorder. Honestly, the most diagnosed one we have is post-traumatic stress disorder, which I think a lot of people think only happens in the military, but we've got a ton of kids that have experienced a lot of trauma in their life, which has impacted them. So PTSD is very real with a lot of our students. We have a couple that have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, which are pretty intense, and oppositional defiance disorder. And a lot of that is when she will work with parents and families through that to help the kid be more successful. Some of the improvement data, our numbers, like I said, have been showing a lot of success. So students are monitored in any of 4 areas. Some students are monitored in 1 area, some are in all 4. It just depends on the student. So they're monitored in the areas of externalizing behaviors, academic performance, attendance at school, and internalizing behaviors. Out of those students that are monitored in each of those areas, 80% of the students monitored had shown that they improved their externalizing behaviors. So what we would look at in school as write-ups, being sent out of class, improved academic performance. 62% of those kids that are being monitored in that area showed improvement. 69% showed improvement in the area of attendance. And then improved internalized behaviors means like a student who might be cutting or is severely depressed and doesn't want to associate with anybody. It's a very personal feeling. 87% showed improvement in that area. For our success stories, we obviously have a lot of individual kids, 102 that have seen her. So picking out some specific ones is a little hard, but I will tell you that the culture of has changed, and looked at this really as a good resource for our kids. Our school counselors are able to increase their services for other students, and that sounds simple, but they have so much on their plate when you start looking at scheduling and mediating with teachers, mediating with other kids, post-secondary applications, 504 case management. And that didn't even go into the fact that they coordinate all of our AP testing and SATs and ACTs and senior night and all that kind of stuff. So right now, Ruby has over 400 hours that were eligible for billing. And the way we look at that is that's about 400 hours that went back to our counselors to be able to provide better services for our students in other ways. Also, our teachers and our administration, we look at the program as a resource for students to help them be more successful. I probably 4 times a day get emails from teachers that they're worried about a kid. Hey, can you reach out to this kid? Do you think that they could get into Ruby? Every one of our administrators has walked down the hall to visit with her about a kid. And so we really, we look at her and the program itself as just a real resource for our kids. Something that I didn't really think about ahead of time that we were surprised by was we are able to make much better informed decisions about student interventions. So whether that be MTSS, our leveled interventions for our gen ed kids, or really specifically to special ed students, to students with special needs, we're able to use the data and the diagnoses and all that kind of stuff that we get out of their sessions with Ruby to make better decisions for their IEPs and for their interventions. So that's a huge piece that we didn't even really anticipate, but has been incredibly valuable for us. So we have some survey results. I reached out to students that are in the program regularly. So it was approximately 50 students. And I asked them very simple, 3 simple questions. And the first question I asked them was, do you feel as though visiting with Ruby has helped you be more successful in school? And 86% of students said yes, that they felt more successful in school after visiting with Ruby. And I was very specific to ask about in school because obviously we've placed this program in our building because not because we feel like it's the school's job to help everybody with mental health, but because we know it's the school's job to educate. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to educate when you have a kid who's struggling with something. So our goal is to help them be more successful in school. So, you know, we've arranged this program so that we can give them easy access to it. But ultimately what we're tracking is, are their grades better? Is their attendance better? That kind of stuff. So I asked that question, and then if they selected that yes, they felt it helped them be more successful, then I asked for just a couple specific, straight from the kids' mouths, and I'm really serious when I say it is straight from the kids' mouths. Direct quotes from the survey. So how were they successful? A kiddo said, "I'm less anxious around people in class." Another student said, "She makes me want to be here and do good on my work so that I can have a better future." We have a student that said, "Ruby has helped me learn how to calm myself enough and manage my anxiety in order to stay in class focused." And then the one that got me pretty bad when I first read it, but Ms. Ruby has definitely helped me to not only stay in school, but stay alive. And when you get that straight from a kid, you know you're doing the right thing. When we asked the students if they thought we should continue the program for next year, 100% of the students that were surveyed said yes, we should continue this next year. And then asked the students, what do you think other people should know about the program? So quotes, and these are a tiny bit lengthy, and so I'm sorry about that, but I felt like I couldn't cut off kids. I wanted them to be heard. So specifically, one student said there is someone safe in the school to talk to if they don't have anyone else to speak to that they trust. Another student said they should be grateful that the program is offered here. Some schools are not as fortunate and cannot offer services to students in need. I hope that the program continues because it can continue to help students struggling who may not be able to get help outside of school. And then lastly, it's not a bad thing to see a mental health professional. They can help you work through difficult problems that you may not be able to work through alone or with each other. It's another layer of support for you, your child, or your student. Being a teen, being alive, is difficult. And when things go awry, anything can set you off. It can be as small as someone stepping on your shoe in the hall. Having someone right there to talk to may just stop you from hurting yourself or hurting others. I feel it would be an extreme disservice to the students if you discontinued the program. So like I said, straight from kids' mouths, they put it much more eloquently than I probably could have. In addition to the survey, one thing I wanted to point out was that having Ruby in the building has been incredibly beneficial for crisis response. So students that are experiencing suicidal or homicidal ideation, I would say we're at approximately 10 students that have gone to the hospital basically straight from Ruby's office. We've had over 27 students hospitalized this year for suicidal ideation that we know of. But as I've mentioned before, we don't always know about it. And we have had at least 2 students that we know of that were hospitalized for homicidal ideation as well. So the concern that they may hurt others. She does provide immediate assistance with symptoms of psychosis or panic attacks. Psychosis, really, unfortunately, we do have quite a few students who struggle with literally hearing voices and not knowing how to process that. She is able to help in those situations. And then we have students who have panic attacks so bad that they are on the ground looking like they're having a seizure, where she's able to step in, get them to her office and kind of talk them through. And actually, most of them end up being able to go right back to class after she's gotten a chance to process with them. We also this year, unfortunately, had a suicide attempt in our building, and she was there to help with that. It was a patient of hers, and she was able to respond immediately and talk to the EMTs that responded to help support that student the best way that she could and to help relay information to the EMTs as well. So it was incredibly valuable to have her there for that. Just a couple of the unique stories, and this is the last little piece, but I wanted to mention, when I talk about prevented suicides, prevented suspensions, and kids dealing with trauma, specifically, and I mentioned it to the county commission the last time I was there, but when you talk prevented suicides, for example, we have a student who was referred by a teacher through a Google form that we created at the beginning of the year. And the teacher felt that this kid, he had just kind of made some comments that made him a little concerned. So he put in a referral on him. We called the student up pretty much immediately because we got the referral after school ended. And then the next morning at about 8 a.m., we had called the student in to check on him. And this is not a student who would have been on our radar otherwise. Nice kid, great grades, never got in trouble. And when he came in, he revealed that he did have an entire suicide plan and had actually started the plan in motion. He had started to say his goodbyes to people. He had actually bought a Starbucks coffee for that teacher that did the referral that morning and brought it to him as a farewell. And had written a note on his whiteboard to him, just thanking him for all he had done because he had intended to take his life that night. So with Ruby there, once we did our basic screener, Terry Bell was the one that did the basic screener. She brought the student to Ruby. Ruby did a risk assessment right there, and that student was taken to the hospital immediately. After the hospitalization, wonderful. The student has not had any other issues with suicidal ideation. He literally is like a whole new kid as far as confidence goes, and feels like, it was an incredible benefit for him to have people looking out for him that got him, the treatment that he needed. Prevented suspensions. I give the example of I have a student who I had to suspend multiple times last year, and he unfortunately has a tendency when he gets overwhelmed to sit down on the ground and refuse to move, or he'll crawl under a table, or he'll scream at everybody a lot of cuss words and throw stuff against a wall. And this year, I have not had to suspend that student at all because once he starts to go into the meltdown, he has built such a connection with Ruby that she can just come out and he will go straight into her office, have his meltdown in there, which they tend to take about an hour. He has his meltdown in there, and then she can get him refocused and he can go to class. So we do have actually quite a few kids who we've been able to prevent suspensions and keep them in school, which obviously is one of our biggest goals. And then lastly, we do have a lot of students, like I mentioned, that deal with trauma. And I don't want to make everybody super sad and tell you some of the horrible stories that we hear of kids and situations that they're coming out of. But one student in particular has been expelled from almost every school he's ever attended. He was abandoned by his mom with an abusive dad. He went through horrible amounts of abuse for the majority of his life. And then, even coming off of an expulsion from last year, this year, we noticed quite a few of those behaviors right off the bat. We got him involved with Ruby, and his suspensions have significantly declined. But more importantly, he's a kid who never trusted adults ever. And now he is able to come talk to adults when he's feeling very overwhelmed, and he knows he's got trusted people. And even, he used to go off on me or go off on another administrator. There would be cussing and that kind of stuff. And that doesn't happen now because we've learned how to work with him as well through the help of Ruby to figure out what his triggers are and ways to help, reduce those things that will make him explode. So we've been really, really happy with, that kind of, it falls into both with dealing with kids that come from really awful pasts and trying to prevent suspensions and keep them in school in their safe place. So that's pretty much all I have. I would love to hear any questions you guys have. I will attempt to exit my screen, you guys.
Now, this is related to issue that's going to be on the ballot in August. Is that
Yeah, that actually, we're 100% sure we want the ballot initiative, but the state of Kansas did renew the grant and actually doubled it for next year, more than doubled it. So we anticipate being able to keep the same grant that we have and then hope to work with the county to get additional supports.
So, Ms. Knight, is Ruby enough or do we need additional support at the high school?
That's a good question. Ruby is very full. I would say that for sure. And our initial hope had been that she would be able to assist more in middle school as well, knowing that the need is strong there. But at current rate, she does not have room in her schedule to be able to do that. So, I definitely think that it's something we need to look at. We need to work as a team to figure out, what the true number, the true need is, and figure out if we do need to add more people. I know that Keith over at Guidance Center is incredibly supportive of the program and is willing to help in any way possible. And, you know, we've been looking at numbers continuously to make sure that it right now is really not costing the district anything. And in fact, we may have some money to put forth towards it, you know, in the future, coming out of this grant. So there may be room for that later on, but I definitely want to, you know, talk it over with all the administrators to figure out how much more we could do.
Hey, Kim, before you answer any questions, Jake, can she call in? Kim, we're having a difficult time being able to hear you, or at least I am.
Me too.
Yeah,
And I just texted her and told her that we were having trouble hearing her.
it kind of remind me of Mork and Mindy. Sorry, Doug.
That's all right.
I was gonna say, Brenda can put her on the conference call here, and I could play it through my computer and see if that would work. It might echo though.
I just asked
Jake,
her.
you got any solutions?
Well, what I got for answer was
I'll text
basically,
her. I'll text her and work with her offline. You can continue the conversation.
what I heard her say was basically they're going to be looking through the normal staff process to see if we, you know, the resources are there, both the availability and our ability to pay for them for additional, another Ruby to add to the district someplace, which sounds like it would be useful if the resources are there,
Well, one of the things
that or not.
has been advantageous in this is the billable hours. And I don't know if Ms. Jones, you can speak to the billable hours or not. I know that Ms. Knight had some information on that, exactly what it was costing the district between what we got with the grant and the billable hours. I think we're sitting ahead of schedule. And I don't have the exact numbers, I apologize, but I don't know. Christy, do you?
I don't have the exact numbers, but one of the things Kim said, or she was trying to say, was that we, with the grant, have we will pay for Ruby plus have some extra because of billable hours, because of the money that it's paid back into. And so hopefully with that, we would be able to look at possibly doing something because it is, you know, we are helping our kids, and the money, just like any insurance, when you go to see a doctor, they bill the insurance company. And so the insurance is paying for Ruby right now. And so with the grant money we have, we are going to be ahead. And so hopefully we could use that to go ahead and look at doing something else to help out in the district. Like she said, we don't get to use, or Ruby doesn't go down to Warren right now like we had initially planned, because of the fact that she has 41 on her caseload at LHS. And so you know, we have looked at it and talked about, and we did share information with Dr. Roth, and I can have her share that with everybody on where we're at, where we think we're sitting right now financially, based off of everything we had when we left, we're put on to the continuous learning.
Hey, I got a question. Well, I had a couple questions, but I may have missed something in what I didn't hear. But when does this grant end?
So the grant ends in at the end of the school year. So June, I think, July, we would reapply for it for the next year, for the following school year. And so we plan on reapplying for the grant again through the State Department. One of the things that Kim didn't share, which I'll share with everybody, and I'm not sure when she's gonna get back on, but the State Department has asked LHS, our program, to be one of the model programs in the state. We're one of two that they've asked to help in the state to demonstrate how to help make this work in your schools. Because of Kim and the work that she's done along with Terry and Ruby, we have been asked to be a model program. So we will reapply for next year to hopefully either look at possible what we can do if we can add one, or just keep where we're at and continue to move forward.
And then I also, I know a couple years ago, we got the guidance center involved in the behavioral issues with kids. Is that still ongoing? Or is Ruby taking care of that? I saw she got behavioral things on there, but
Right, so she does take care of some of the behavioral stuff. We still have some students who do go to the guidance center, then get help as well with other therapists and have people that come and meet with them in the building. But Ruby has taken on a lot of what's happening because she is in the building and she is right there. But we do have therapists who do come in our building still and work with kids.
what credentials does she have? Is she a doctor or a PhD?
She's
or-
a licensed, I think it's a licensed social clinical therapist or something like that. I'll let Kim answer that because I'm not sure exactly what her title is.
Yeah. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! Okay.
Who is that?
Yeah, right. She is, I think it's LMSW. She is a clinical social worker. So trained therapist. She will actually be a specialist at the end of next year, which really honestly doesn't even make her that much more qualified. But what it does is it allows us to bill TRICARE, because right now TRICARE won't take her. Everybody else will.
I have a question, if I may.
Mhm.
Where the kids are at home with the internet learning cycle, I know they don't necessarily have the attention they would normally have in a classroom with their teachers. Some of these students, the only hugs they may have ever gotten were from their teachers, or the high fives and acceptance and things. And I do know you said you picked up about 3 since April in this program, but is there some kind of way the kids can access? And I'm not saying that this is happening, but I know it can happen. A lot of parents are home with the kids now because of having to work from home, and these kids may not have a moment unwatched to where they could reach out to a professional. Or are there any kind of codes in place where they could still maybe get and say, hey, I need help, without somebody that's like always watching them?
Yes.
Them from doing that? Okay.
Yeah. I would try, I don't know if I can, but if I can share my screen again, I will show you really quick a form that we submitted to all of our students. I hope you can see that. So this form went out to our students in their school email that allows them just to basically say, hey, I'm struggling. I could use some help. And so it has their name. We tell them that we are going to be reaching out, parent to get consent, basically. We ask, what it is that they're worried about or what their feelings are right now, and give us a quick description. And then we ask, who do you want us to reach out to? Do you want, to talk to the therapist? Do you want to talk to your counselor? Do you want to talk to Ms. Bell? And then we do have on there, if you need immediate assistance, you need to either call the suicide hotline or call 911, that kind of stuff. So we did reach out to students directly because we know that that kids are struggling, and that is how a couple of those were referred on. Mostly, though, our teachers have done an outstanding job with reaching their kids through Zoom. And the teachers that had built those relationships with kids ahead of time notice when a kid is not doing okay.
Right.
And so I've gotten a ton of phone calls and texts and emails from teachers that are like, hey, I'm worried about this kid, or I haven't heard from this kid and that's not like him. Reach out. I will tell you my next step over the next couple of days is I will be sending a very similar form out to parents to say, have you noticed a change in your kid? Are you worried, that they may be struggling with something and you would like additional support for them? Because to date, we have not really told, it's a little overwhelming, honestly, because we've not super informed our community that this resource is here. We've not reached out a ton to parents and told them this is here, which is partially because she's already full. And so, we don't want to offer a service we don't necessarily have. So but at this time, she is able to work more people in because she's dealing less with the like crises. Generally speaking, she sees between 8 and 10 students a day when she's at school, and only 4 or 5 of those are actual appointments. Everybody else is kind of a crisis moment. You know, I just really need to talk to you. But those obviously are not happening right now. She just has regular appointments right now. So we are able right now to reach out. And I feel like definitely some parents have noticed, you know, my kid is not coming out of their room right now and I'm worried. Maybe they won't talk to me, but maybe they'll talk to somebody else. So that is the next piece that I'll be doing this week.
Okay, good, good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So, Dr. Roth, I have some questions about mental health that we're doing throughout the entire district. I know Miss Knight and Miss Jones are focused on the high school because that's where their roles are. Do we have data for the middle school of students that are in need of mental health assistance? I know on their Chromebooks, they have that help button that automatically takes them to Miss Bell or to her counterpart at the middle school, that they can have a chat with them if they're experiencing some kind of a crisis. Do we have numbers to back that up to say, hey, we need somebody?
I'm
Let me, go ahead, Ms. Baston.
I'm not sure we have hard numbers that I have available right now, but I could follow up with the board on that information. But you're absolutely right. At our middle school level, each of our Chromebooks have pushed out, and that's going on continuously, that have the stoplight help button where they can request help, very similar to what Ms. Knight shared with you at the high school level. And then our elementary has their small group leaders, if whether they're working with their counselor or their social worker, are still checking up with them as well during this time.
And so that's one of the things, Ms. Wells, prior to you coming on the board, that that was something that we were able to do, is add social workers. So you have a counselor and then a half a social worker within each of our elementary buildings.
Right.
And so that was one of the ways to get services and actually follow up. Our social workers' duties entail following up with the guidance center and making sure our families know those connections and have those services available within our community. And so I don't personally have hard numbers, but we can get those for you.
Okay.
I would also mention that another piece that we're looking at is a screener. And I did just speak with Kathy Redelberger as well, because part of that is actually going to come from SPED. But we do feel like there are kids who don't hit our radar that do need help. And through a screener that we could administer to students, we may be able to identify some additional kids. And that would really give us better numbers as well, as far as, you know, how many social workers, how many clinicians do we really need? How many therapists do we need in the district? You know, if the county or if the ballot question goes through, we would be looking at having 3 to 4 full-time clinicians in the district, which may be an underestimate, in all honesty, you know, based on the numbers we're seeing for Ruby. But by doing a screener, we'd have a better idea.
And that screener will be on the board agenda for you to have that information in May.
So I think it's important that we as a district let the public know that there's a need, not just, hey, you know, we'd kind of like to see what we can do with this, but have actual data to say, if we could have, you know, 4 licensed therapists, they would be able to see these kids that we've had in crises. Because it's my belief, you know, 75% of our behaviors are not behaviors. It's something that they need help with mental health. And if they could get that need met, they wouldn't be in the admin office. They would be in the classroom learning everything they need to learn. So.
And I agree with you. I think that within this, there's a fine line of on how we approach that. You know, as we've talked as an admin team, and it's something that I feel very, very strongly about, that this is a community issue. It's a state issue. It's a national issue. And we want not to blend that into making it a school issue. If we could figure out the mental health, I think there's a lot of school issues that will resolve itself, as you said. But how we frame this with the public and how this is discussed openly, this is something that we're trying to help as a county, which goes into the state, which it goes into a national problem. Mental health is a driving force on a lot of the behaviors that we do deal with. And having Ruby at the high school, I think the presentation tonight shows that progress is being made, especially with some behaviors, repetitive behaviors that we're seeing prior to this year in her services. And I think that would be duplicated in Basel and Pleasant Ridge and Tonganoxie and those other districts, Lansing as well. And I think it's extremely important. But the last thing we want is the public to say, oh, the school's asking for something else, and it have a negative effect on other things that still need to happen in schools as well.
Hey, I just wanted to, Christy, I didn't get the chance to ask you my last question on the grant. Are we sure that money is going to be available given the circumstances we're going through right now?
Yes, we've received communication from the state that the money will be available for us.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, they're meeting on April 27th, just to finalize some language, but the governor's already signed it into law. They're allocating $12.6 million to the grant. So, you know, realistically, we could apply for additional funds. We could apply for, you know, additional therapists, additional liaisons. But that's a decision that would be made probably between all of you guys and, you know, Dr. Roth and everybody at the district level. Know that I'm here to support any of that. And I, you know, plan to do our grant for the high school again, no problem. But if you guys choose, you know, to have additional stuff, I'm here to help with all of that.
That's going to be a problem in the long term because I was looking at KASB today and the forecasted revenues for Kansas for the next couple of years are down because of the isolationism, social distancing that we're in right now. That's going to have a big impact upon the state being able to fund stuff.
One of the things, Mr. Darling, that we're learning in our Zoom meetings is that part of the stimulus package to offset that in all the states, like Governor Kelly, she has almost $1 billion to help offset that to get through until the economy rebounds for programs. So we don't, I mean, there's still that concern, but she will be receiving to where she can allocate over the next 18 months, $1 billion.
That'll cover some of the shortages at least, but you know, it's one of those things that it's the right thing to do for kids, and I'm for that. Convincing somebody who's my age without grandkids is going to be hard, is what I'm saying.
I agree. And that's why I think it needs to be sold as a community, as a county, as a state initiative, not just Leavenworth County. I mean, this is just one piece of it to help take that opportunity and start setting the curve the other way in favor of kids and families that truly struggle with this. And because it doesn't mean, you know, your richest family has just as much of an issue with this as your poorest family. I mean, this is not based on social economic. This is truly, all of us have, we all have some issues, and some of us handle them differently, and having the availability of these counselors and things like that helps get those thoughts refocused on expertise in an area of expertise not all of us have. And so, you know, it's not a school issue because we have adults, we have all of that. This would help community-wide, not just with not with just school-age children.
And I'm just, as you continue to read, which is about one of the things you can do during this isolation, there's all sorts of interesting thought processes about what this is going to have on school-age kids, as far as, you know, shutting down schools and them not being able to socialize and play as they normally would, and what the long-term implications of that are. We don't really know at this time.
And that's going to be a huge step for us as a district, not only here, but across the state as well. As you know, we won't have some of these kids for over 5 months. I mean, they won't be in a structured classroom. They won't be having to share and do some of those socialized activities that schools provide. So we're going to have that curve again, especially with our younger learners. That's going to, you know, take some time and effort as well. And so there's a lot of things rolling that would really benefit our county and our state to be able to start some initiatives like what Miss Knight's done, and working with the task force in our county. And I just think it's a very worthwhile endeavor. But I also think that we got to acknowledge that it's not a school. A school is a part of that, but it's a county, it's a state, it's a national issue.
Agree with that. Do any of the board members have anything else they'd like to add? Okay, I think we can thank Ms. Jones, Ms. Knight, and for a very interesting, and we would not have had a chance to go spend 50 minutes on this at a regular board meeting. And I think the idea of having a special one tonight was well worth the time period to educate the board and make us aware of what we need to do this in the future. So we appreciate you signing in and talking to us. And with that, we'll go on to agenda item 3, unless somebody objects, which is construction update.
All right. One of the things, as you know, through just conversations, is that our timeline has been expanded. Some is due to the COVID-19. Some we're still fighting some weather issues as far as being able to do some of the landscaping and finishing some of the hard surface areas around the building. But Jake and I went out today, so this is a first look, and I'll kind of talk you through. We got a little video to show you what the inside of the building looks like, and just to kind of wet the whistle a little bit of the excitement and the anticipation of, I believe, what's going to be second to none as far as opportunities for kids to really explore education and really bring education to life, and give teachers the opportunity to just really have fun teaching and in a great atmosphere. And so with that, Jake, if we want to start the video. So this is the outside, as you can tell. This is getting ready to come into the main entry into the building. And so they still have some of the metal panels to do. This is the inside of the reception area. The security desk was to the left. This is the reception office. Here's the slide.
That's a tough landing.
It's going to be quite the drop, but they had to redo 10 inches of it. It was built wrong. This is the media center. And so this is, naturally, there's some arrangement that still needs to take place, but all those shelves, they're mobile, easily movable. So we're excited to get those bookshelves filled. Here's just outside the main commons area. This is what we call our cafe experience. Those are the doors that can shut off the commons in the building. And here's the commons. Again, just a different view of a collaborative space. This is what Mr. Darling calls the Wildcat Room, or K-State.
No, I said it better not be any feral felines in there.
Hey, Jake, can you pause this real quick? This is what a normal classroom would look like. One of the things that I'll share is we go through the setup of the classroom is somewhat very consistent. Well, it's not somewhat, it's very consistent from classroom to classroom. One of the things that I've appreciated as I've got more familiar with the building and been in there more times, this at the very first look, this was my least favorite room. It's just like this color, this color, this color. But when you come and see this with the lights on and it in person, this is actually my favorite room or his favorite color scheme because it's bright, it's soothing. Once you see all the furniture in there, and I mean, when you actually see with your own eyes, it's just, it's great. But one of the things as we go through, you'll see a variety of colors in each of our rooms. You know, and color helps keep the mind going, occupy it, soothing, and open and welcoming. So this, I will tell you, I was talking with him, how do I get this repainted? How do we get this floor? And now it's one of my favorite rooms. And so it's interesting how the progression has gone in this process. All right, thanks, Jake.
Well, we'll just throw a little purple in there. We'll call this the Buzz Lightyear room.
There you go. There you go. See the technology. This would be again a different color scheme, but the layout of the room and the functionality of the furniture is very flexible. Here's what the teachers' office area, their personal space. As you know, not all the teachers will own a room, so they would have this room to collaborate together. They have individual lockers to be able to lock things. This is our resource room, which you can see the tables are different. The seating's different in this. It's more project-based, lab work, things to that like that. Here's another just regular classroom, just showing different colors. You can see different views from out the windows. A lot of natural light, which I think is going to be much appreciated. Here's the outdoor classroom.
Mike,
Jake, pause.
is there going to be some like minor landscaping, like something green outside some of the windows, bushes or small trees? Or
if it will ever dry up enough to get grass and stuff planted, there's going to be shrubbery,
Okay.
probably not tall trees right away, but I don't know what that piece of the future would look like, but definitely lots of landscape has still got to take place, which will green that up and be able to do some things. And as people, as time goes on, I'm sure there'll be trees that are donated or the board may decide at some point in time to do, once you see it all done, maybe add some things here and there.
okay.
But this is the outdoor classroom. It's not complete, totally complete on that area. And so here's just another view from the upstairs looking down the main hallway into another collab space. Again, all the furniture is very flexible. You'll see another view of this here shortly. Coming back the other way, back to the hallway. Lots of areas for students. And Jake, if you'll pause, one of the things that we looked at in this, I was like, man, there's a lot of furniture out here. But the idea of this space was to bring multiple classes out and do large group activities, cross-learning, cross-curricular. So this gives those opportunities. Plus this furniture is very mobile. It could be moved to different places as needed. And so that was one of the things that we were looking at as well. In this, you could see whiteboards, there's technology available. Those big technology boards you see in the classroom, those are mobile to come out into these spaces to do things and to give kids the opportunity and teachers the opportunity to kind of flip classrooms and make kids allow kids to be more creative and more collaborative, more so than what we've ever been able to do before. Plus you see the windows, there's transparency, so teachers are always available and able to, adults are for supervision and being able to see what's going on, which hopefully will work out as a benefit as well. Another kind of a working lab area, makerspace type projects. Just an upstairs classroom. You can see different views, the natural light, which is neat in itself. This is our science lab. I can tell because of the flammable cabinet back there. Plus it has the multiple sinks. Here's the view from the main foyer coming in. You can see where the slide will finish, the different aesthetic looks, the openness. Here's the art room, which is one of my favorite rooms. Again, just another open space area from on the other side. This will also serve as the tech room, or not the tech room, but back there where that, back in the corner right behind the ladder, that's where our tech, the checkout, they'll be able to work on our Chromebooks, check them in, check them out. It's a neat little area that keeps our tech equipment more secure and parts and things like that. So that's actually a very neat area. That door pops up, so it's like a serving line. And here's the sign out front, the plaque. Matt's crew. Well, first, is there any questions on what you saw in the video that I can help or I try to explain?
So I appreciate all the natural light. Do we have any kind of blinds for if the lighting is going to be inhibiting
that
somebody?
If you would see on some of them, they had some of the sunshades that you're able to pull down. And then also on the outside, through architectural design, they have what like kind of a visor out there that helps break that sun from directly coming in. So they've got that pretty much nailed, I think. The rooms are bright, but like the lighting is also controlled. So if it's like a really bright day, you can dim the lights within each of the room to help offset some of that. So those parts and those little like nuances there actually were pretty cool as I was going through. And like all of that lighting was today when really it was one of the brighter late morning, early afternoon when we shot that video. So it was pretty bright outside. So you could kind of see it was right before noon.
I have a plethora of emotions about the school. I'm excited. I'm happy. I love all the colors, especially seeing them come more in together versus when last time we were there. I was just curious if it would be too soon to where maybe we could take the video that you just shared with us and maybe put a little music to it and throw it out there to the public for, you know, a little bit more of a smooth teaser of, hey, look at all this.
That's one of the things, hopefully by the end of this week, first part of next, all of the ladders and all that stuff will kind of it'll be a little more clean. And Jake's actually, he's kind of been waiting to do that, but I know Mr. Darling's asked some questions. And so I wanted to get, when we had this opportunity, I wanted to get something in front of the board to be able to see it, but we definitely have that. And then we also will plan a open house for the community once we have the opportunity where we're able to get through the restrictions that are placed upon us with our current COVID restrictions.
Right. Well, I'm just really pleased with the transformation and how outstanding everything looks. So thank you very much.
It's going to be a neat, it's really going to be a neat educational experience for kids. The idea of it is that we want them to see education as fun, but we also want to give the teachers the tools and the flexibility to really just change not the content, but the delivery of that content, and give them opportunity to bring education to life and experience, and use kids' knowledge in this same area to be able to do some peer interaction and collaboration. So it's going to be exciting. I know Miss Short and Miss Batson have been spending a lot of time researching and discussing and really working on very collaborative lessons and opportunities for everyone. So it's going to be exciting.
Yes.
So what kind of end dates are we looking forward to?
So there's some few things that have held some stuff up. The elevator, the wrong motor came, and from my understanding with elevator and elevator companies, that's a slower process. So some of the stuff got delayed because of just the flexibility of getting stuff up and down through with the elevator. So that's some area that should be, there should be a remedy today or tomorrow with that. Then the slide, it was manufactured 12 inches too tall or 10 inches too tall. So some of those tubes had to be altered, which they were supposed to ship those down by personal carrier today, this afternoon. And so that hopefully will be assembled. So to answer your question, Mr. Goodman, outside of the gym, which the gym has come along, I mean, it's painted, sound panels are going up in the gym. The floor, they're hoping to start the floor next week. So they're still hoping to turn that entire building over to us that first week in May, including the gym, if all things remain the same. If not, talking with Steve today, he's hoping by the end of the week to the first part of next week that Matt has full access to bring staff in and really take control of the building outside of the gym by the end of this week, first part of next. And so our goal is still to allow, have teachers be allowed to come in at some point in time, even on an individual basis, to get familiar or have some one-on-one meetings with Ms. Short, you know, keeping the safety and their best interest, but to give them opportunities while they're still on contract to be able to come over. So May 1st, you know, 2 weeks, we're hoping to have 95% completion outside of the gym.
Now, Matt and his crew have already started on the cafeteria at Warren, correct?
Yes, that cafeteria or the kitchen area is all, it's basically Nabholz put forth their letters of intent to their subcontractors. And so that can begin anytime. Matt notified me this morning that Lawson is pretty bare at this time. So they should be able to meet the target date of, and they have issued contractual letters to their subs for Lawson as well. So Lawson and the kitchen should begin right around that May 1st timeframe, if not shortly after. The high school parking lot, we got all of our permits for the high school parking lot that needed to take place for land disturbance and that. So that should begin shortly after toward the 1st to the middle of May on that project. We're still finalizing some of the final numbers on the secured entryway to the high school. But Warren Middle School, they got everything ready to roll for the Warren Middle School because there'll be a new secure entry there, or reformatting that. There will also be the SPED suite that ties the two buildings with one major special education area for the functional skills and our students that need those services. That suite still has to be remodeled and built. And then the collab areas in the middle school. So the only thing that won't begin or be finished by this summer are the 3 co-lab areas in our remaining elementary buildings. But everything else will have stuff rolling here fairly soon.
So I have a not too unrelated question. Are our teachers able to use the buildings currently to do any of their current work, or are they all relegated to home only?
That's a great question, Mr. Goodman. We have left it up with teachers to work that out with our building principals on an as-need basis. If they need to be in the building, we've made arrangements for teachers to be in there. I can't tell you if specifically an art teachers requested that or not. They cannot come and go freely, just due to making sure that we have the areas clean. And then if we know they're in there, we're able to follow up with our custodial crew to clean those areas. So they do have to check in with the principal. I don't have the exact answer for you whether or not that's been requested, but teachers, if they request or need to come in for a lesson or be able to do that, all they would have to do is communicate with the principal, and then we would adjust the 10 in the building to make sure that we can give them that opportunity.
Okay, good. Because if anything I've learned during this whole ordeal is that I dislike working from home. And if I had the opportunity to actually go to work and actually get stuff done, I'd jump on that. So I want to make sure that if any teacher really feels like they could do a better job being in their classroom and doing their Zoom meetings from their classrooms and helping kids from their classrooms, I want to make sure that we're able to do that and stay within the law. I don't know that there's any edicts against doing that, but I know there's a stay-at-home issue order from the governor. So it sounds like we've got the proper accommodations. So that sounds great to me.
Another question for me, now that I saw in the Leavenworth Times where the city commission has formally approved the land swap, I assume that's going to be on the agenda on the 13th of May.
It is, yes.
Okay, so how soon after that, when we formally accept that, will this baseball, softball complex get started?
So after the board approves if the board would approve that land swap contract, which that will come out to you as well, then it would need to be published in the paper for a period of 30 days or to give 30 days for a protest. And then it would go back to the city for final approval on their end of that. And so you would still be looking at the first part of July before probably dirt or anything like that would be able to be moved, or the board would decide to do plans or anything, surveys and that type of stuff.
Okay, so next spring season, assuming we're allowed to have one, knock on wood, would be when we'd be able to play games there.
Correct.
Now this is the soccer fields over by the Warren Middle School that we're talking about?
South of Warren.
Yeah, it's directly west of the Pioneer or the football field, not on the other side of New Lawrence Road.
The old baseball diamond field.
Yeah.
That's before my time.
Okay. I know that there's a trail that goes out there. Are we planning on preserving that trail?
That wouldn't be touched, no.
No.
That walking trail.
Okay, so we're leaving it as is. Okay.
Yes.
Because that would be my only concern about the public, is that it's a fairly popular trail. So
100%.
So long as it's preserved, I'm all for.
Hey, Doug.
Yes.
I had a couple options I've been working on to what we can do with those fields. And
just as an FYI, this is still bond update, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Construction update.
Okay.
that was one of my questions too, is that didn't we build in some money for capital programs that, but Matt's got those covered already, right?
So part of the bond, to answer your question, is yes, about $3 million of the bond money went towards capital improvements that Matt has already worked through with Nabholz, DLR, plus projects that he's done on his own. And all of that was brought to the board as far as how we were going to prioritize that and handle those situations. And so just over $3 million of the bond money was strictly for capital improvements. And it's went from air conditioning to parking lots to new lighting for security, those types of things.
But it is my understanding that the land swap and any development of the land swap is not part of the bond.
That is correct.
Okay. So I think
Mike,
we should exit out of this discussion.
Mike, I called Mr. Preisler the other day after their last meeting, and he said that it wasn't too specific, but who's responsible for the survey? He talked about a survey. Are we responsible or are they responsible?
Well, the survey was within the agreement, and they had to have a survey according to my discussions or my understanding of the discussions, that there were some things they needed to clean up on their side before they would approve before they would approve that. I guess we'll just keep calling it a land swap deal. But once we take possession, Mr. Carney, we would need to have it surveyed for one, the feasibility and the of being able to do what we're wanting to do there, from restrooms to those types of things. So that survey would be on us at that point in time.
Okay. I think if we go too much further, Danielle's bit about being a little bit further outside the scope of the special meeting is probably there. If we have further questions, may I suggest you individually check with Dr. Roth, and if it applies to everybody, that we go ahead and get it taken care of in an FYI. So unless there's more construction stuff, it's time to go ahead and call the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Aye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
See you later.